All right, so whoosh, got a lot on the board here. But actually, this chaotic thing right here is going to help us demystify pain. That is my goal for you with this video. I want to help you feel a little less confused about pain and hopefully have a little more clarity about why it's so hard to heal sometimes. Now, this video probably isn't for you if you just get out of pain like that. It's no problem. You can do one pass of a fascia release technique, let's say, and boom, you're out of pain. That's probably, that situation doesn't really apply here. So I want to just say right off the bat that pain is usually a perfect storm. It's almost never a singular cause and effect. And yet we live in kind of a medical paradigm where we're being told a lot of the time that, you know, if you get a diagnosis, then there's a cure or a fix, and it should be boom, boom, and you should be better. If you get the surgery, you're going to be just fine. And there's this misconception that healing maybe should be easy or fast. And a lot of the time it isn't. For some people, it is. But I think what can happen, at least I know this happened for me, and so I'm filming this video for any of you that have had a similar experience to me, is that I felt defective when I didn't heal fast. So actually, the longer my healing journey was taking me, the more I would spiral into shame because I felt just like I must be broken. Like I must have been born with something, you know, like a part missing or a piece missing or a lock with no key or a key without a lock. Something here is just like clearly defective. But that mindset really hurt me more than if someone had actually given me permission to realize that sometimes healing is complex. Sometimes it takes time, you know, but it doesn't have to. So here's the thing. I want to be crystal clear here. I reserve, I reserve possibility for anything. So whether that's me, and this is my current mindset. So this is not, I'm not talking about me in my 20s, because when I was in my 20s, I was very much in the mindset of I should be healed, but I'm not, and therefore I must be defective. And that just kind of kept me stuck. But now I like to reserve the possibility that anything is possible, right? We could heal. If you're stepping into my office, for example, you could get out of pain really fast. But if you don't, that's okay too, right? So I always want to leave room for possibility that things can happen fast. But I also want to be really clear that it's okay if it's not happening fast. That pain can be complex. And if it's a complex case, it may take a little time. And if you actually think about it, our willingness to pause and take the time to really like be with and acknowledge that truth that I'm a complex case. This might take a little while, but I'm willing to dig in here. When you actually have that mindset, it happens a lot faster than if you're in that kind of resistance, shame, defective, try something quick. And if it doesn't happen quick, you give up and then you feel ashamed and defective, and then you kind of go through that cycle over and over. I've seen a lot of people do that. I used to be in that cycle, and so it can keep us actually stuck and spinning our wheels for a really long time. So if you're willing to actually pause, realize that you're a complex case, and dig in, it can actually happen faster than if you think it should happen fast, and it's not. So the purpose of this video is to really kind of dive into all the moving pieces and parts that go into causing pain. If you really want to take ownership of your body and claim self-governance of what you own here, which includes any pain you have, and then pursuing freedom and healing and health and vitality, you gotta know a little bit about pain science, right? Pain is part of life. And really, it can be boiled down to something pretty simple in its essence, and yet when we dig in, it can feel complex. So pain is really nothing more than your body detecting a potential threat and getting your attention. So pain is a threat detection signal that is going off, kind of like a smoke alarm would in your house. If there's smoke in the house, it doesn't know if it's just the burning meat on your stove, or an actual full-blown fire. So the same thing is true in your body. Your body doesn't really know, it doesn't have the consciousness to know if there's an actual threat or if it's just kind of the threat system has been triggered, the threat signal. So here are I have written here the primary components that go into creating a pain signal. So right off the bat, I want to say that, if you're here at Mobility Mastery, hopefully you agree with me on this, and I don't need you to, but this is my perspective. Physical pain can become emotional, and emotional pain can become physical. So a lot of the time we experience a physical injury that is, when it happens, purely physical, but it can, over time, if it's not healed quickly, become emotional. And then we have emotional pain, traumas and, relationship stuff, childhood stuff that is emotional in nature, but if it's not, if it also isn't healed in the moment, if we don't process it fully through in the moment, can become physical. Every emotion we have as human beings has an accompanying cascade of physical sensation. So that's kind of proof enough for me of how connected these things are. If you want additional resources to learn about this, I highly recommend reading The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. It's just a really great breakdown from a scientific perspective of how interconnected we are. So there's a lot that goes into creating a pain signal, and it's not always crystal clear if it's purely physical or purely emotional, and a lot of the time there's an overlap. Now, I would say that in cases where, let's say, you roll your ankle while hiking, that's a pretty purely physical experience, and if, when you do this, you are equipped with the knowledge and the how-to of how to get rid of that physical pain immediately, then you can take care of it and it remains a 100% purely physical issue that gets resolved fast. So that's actually something I know how to do, which is really exciting and fun. I can take care of my own rolled ankles if I get them, which I don't anymore, but I used to a lot. But if I have knee pain on a trail, let's say, I know how to take care of it on the trail and disappear it, basically, and then it stays physical. But if it doesn't get taken care of right away, that's when it can become more of a mix of emotion or nervous system and then physical. So when I say physical, what I mean is, maybe there's a legitimate fascial tightness that's pulling, in the case of, say, knee pain, pulling your patella off the bursa, and there's a little bone on bone, right? And if that's not getting taken care of, though, it can trigger your deeper fears about being defective, about being broken for life, about not being able to hike or run. I'm talking from personal experience here. So this is how pain can become emotional if it doesn't start off that way. So all of these things go into potential pain signals. Injuries, obviously. So any past injuries, though, and compensations that you incur from having an injury can go into whatever you're maybe feeling right now. So it's probably going to be easiest for me if I assume that you're in some kind of pain at the moment. So any past injuries that you've had are probably somewhat related to, maybe peripherally, if not directly connected, to past injuries that you've experienced. So, let's say you rolled your ankle really badly as a teenager, and then you let's say it was your right ankle, and then you compensate by, leaning on and using your left leg a little more because your right can't really take the weight. Then you load up your left side, and then maybe as a young adult, you start experiencing low back pain on your right side, which is actually caused by your left leg taking more of your weight and throwing your pelvis out of alignment. And then, potentially there's a cascade from there. So we all have our version of this. Our relationships can certainly affect our experience of pain. Because maybe we're in a threatening relationship, or maybe we're in a pretty good relationship, but there's an element in it that triggers an old pattern for us of feeling threatened, even if it's not a real threat. So that can cause something to occur in your body that it ends in a pain signal. Ultimately, it can happen. Our habits, so leaning on one leg, how we sit, how we stand, whether we cross our legs one over the other or switch or always the same leg. If you have kids and you always hold them on one hip, all these things can go into pain. Whether we feel on purpose or not, if you hate your career and you're stressed out every time you go to work and you're assuming a certain physical shape at work, but the whole time you're having an emotional experience of not liking what you do or not liking where you are, then you kind of ingrain those emotions into your physical body while you're at work. So that can play a role as well. Our thoughts, obviously, I mean, I think that's clear. Our thoughts affect our life. Our subconscious is very much going to play a role in pain. So if you have anything at the subconscious level that hasn't been addressed, that your body really needs to move out before you can feel free, then you probably won't get to experience as much physical freedom as you're capable of until you address whatever is there. So it could be repressed emotions, it could be, unhealed trauma, it could be just some truth you haven't acknowledged about yourself or your life. But whatever's living in your subconscious is very much in your body. So your subconscious lives in your nervous system, which is in your body. So it's very much related. Any traumas that you've been through, so it could be a physical trauma or an emotional trauma. And then, like I said, they can impact each other. So if you were in a traumatic car accident, for example, whatever ensued after that, that healing process can become very emotional. If you've been through more emotional traumatic experiences, over time, if it's not fully healed, it can become physical. If you have nervous system patterns in the mix, that can get in there. Our lifestyle is going to play a role. And with this, I just kind of mean how active you are, what you eat, how toxic your house is in terms of chemicals that you use, exposure to pesticides and that type of thing, because this actually directly impacts our organs, which impact all the other parts of our bodies. It impacts the lymph system, which lives inside the superficial fascia. So there's a lot that goes into lifestyle, obviously, but also how stressed out you are, how much fun you have, how playful you are versus serious, and all those things. Obviously, any sports we play or activities are going to play a role. Our emotions and consciousness. So to me, I don't know if I missed anything. Let me know in the comments below if you can think of something that I missed here that feels really important to include. But I think these are the primary ones for me, and I would include in relationships our relationship to self. So my relationship to myself is certainly going to play a role, like the stories I tell about my body, the stories I tell about myself. If I'm telling myself the story that I'm defective, right? That is my relationship to myself, but it's related to my thoughts and my consciousness, right? And the emotions stirred. And then I create nervous system patterns that produce pain, potentially, or it starts with pain and then I produce those different things that perpetuate the pain. So I'm really offering this as kind of a place for you to dig in if you're currently in pain, to just assess. You could take each of these categories and just kind of assess your history. I have written actually a full blog post for this video, and in it I describe a made-up scenario of a person who is experiencing pain, and then I run through some history that includes a lot of these components, and then I offer you the chance to guess at what the patterns are. But I'm not going to actually tell anyone, but I might come talk to you guys about it. So if you want to read the full blog post, it's going to be linked below this video. You could play along and see if you can guess some of the patterns, because here's the thing that I really want you to take away from this. The ability to solve pain, which is really the reason I wanted to talk to you today, because I want you to be able to solve your own pain. The ability to solve pain comes down to pattern recognition. It comes down to really digging in and figuring out, what is the pattern here? What is the pattern of pain? So it could be a physical pattern in your fascia. It could be an emotional pattern. It could be a relationship pattern, but it could be all of those patterns at once, creating a perfect storm. And that's usually the case for most of us. So I kind of had a little fun creating this made up person who's experiencing pain, but also going through, other things like, relationship stress and a certain, sports and activities that they did, and compensation patterns from past injuries and some emotional stuff. So I do hope you check that out, because it'll help you develop the skill of pattern recognition, because there are some very, I wouldn't say obvious patterns, but there are some distinct patterns in this made up story that I created. So if you can do it with something outside of yourself first, that's often easier, because it's often hardest to see ourselves. So maybe you want to partner with somebody. This would be an amazing exercise, I think. Like, it would make me so happy and just make my heart feel good if you and someone else partnered together on this. If they agreed to help you recognize your patterns and you agreed to help them recognize their patterns, because a lot of the time we're just too close, right, to our own patterns. But what you'll want to really dig in here to figure out is, are there patterns in the way I've molded my fascia, for example, through my sports, my lifestyle, and my habits, right? How I sit, how I stand, my past sports, going all the way back to childhood, what I'm doing now with my body, not just my sports, but I said lifestyle too. So if you sit a lot for work, or maybe you have a standing desk, but how do you actually stand? Like, how are you standing at that standing desk? All of these things are going to come into play and create a pattern. There's going to be some pattern that you'll need to recognize to get out of pain. And I encourage you to start with your body, because it's the easiest place for obvious data gathering. So really, this is about gathering information or data about yourself, your life, who you are, your emotions, your thoughts. But if you start with your body, it's kind of the easiest place to start, because trying to see our own patterns of emotions and trauma and subconscious and nervous system stuff, now we're like in the weeds, and it's a lot harder to do for ourselves. But if we start with our body, we can actually get to all of these from the body. So that is really how I got to them, through my own body first, and then working with so many of my clients. These patterns would emerge, So I would notice clients of mine talking about their difficult marriage. They would just talk to me, I'm not trying to play therapist, but they felt safe with me. And so they were confiding in me while we were working on their body. So I was noticing some of those patterns come into play while we are also gathering patterns or data about their body and why they're in pain. And then sometimes it would necessitate a conversation like, hey, do you think your relationship stress is having an impact on your body? And a lot of the time people would say, well, duh. I think we all know this, right? But sometimes it takes someone asking us for the light bulb to actually go off. And then it's a duh moment, but maybe we didn't actually connect the dots until someone asked. So you can do this work for yourself. So if you're going to start with your body, what I recommend is using fascia release to map your body and find patterns. And what this really means, and I'm not going to give you a demo or anything in this video, or this video would be very, very long, but you can just get on a foam roller or a lacrosse ball or whatever and notice or observe where you're tight versus where you're less tight. So where you're more tight versus less tight. So left to right, left quad, right quad. What are the differences there? That's going to start to create a pattern. What's your reactivity or emotion level, or what are the thoughts you think, or are you dissociating from the sensations that you feel in your left quad, but not your right? Maybe you can tolerate what you feel in your right quad, but not your left. These are the things that you're going to want to start to notice. So you're going to want to put yourself in observer mode as much as possible in order to actually gather this data. And the kind of imagination I like to give when I'm teaching people how to do this is, imagine for a moment that you're trying to gather puzzle pieces and you're putting them on the table, but you're resisting the urge to figure out what the puzzle looks like in its entirety until you have enough puzzle pieces on the table. So if you have a 500 piece puzzle, for example, that's you right now, and you're only at 4 or 5 puzzle pieces, you're going to have no clue whatsoever of what that whole picture looks like. So if you stop there and you get frustrated and then you enter that cycle that I mentioned at the beginning, where you think you're defective and so you give up, but then you want out of this painful experience, so you try again, but you try half-heartedly because you think you should get out of pain fast and you don't. So then you come back to I must be defective, right? This is the death spiral that keeps us stuck. So if you're willing to continue gathering data pieces and put them on the table, gather 5 more, put them on the table, okay, 10 more, put them on the table. Whoa, I had an amazing day today. I have 50 pieces, I'm putting them on the table. Suddenly a picture starts to emerge and you're going to see something that will enlighten you about why you're in pain at the physical level, at the emotional level, at any of these levels. So that's what I have for you today. I would love for you to play along with my game and take a guess at some of the patterns you see in my imaginary person that I wrote up in the blog. So definitely check that out and share your thoughts. But I'd also love to just hear what you think about this idea of pain being a perfect storm, rarely a cause and effect. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't kind of come back to that and just make sure you understand what I mean, especially in the context of the medical world, because the medical world a lot of the time wants us to think that, you know, bulging discs cause back pain, for example. So singular cause, singular effect. But it's, in my opinion, nature is not simple. Nature is not singular in its causes and effects. Nature is a perfect storm. So actually, what I wanted to do is, I forgot about this, but I'm glad I remembered, is right here that what are we all seeking, right? If we're working on getting out of pain, we're seeking more freedom. And freedom, or vitality, health, whatever you want to call it, is also a perfect storm. So this is how I approach every single client that walks in my door. Is I want to know, what is your lifestyle? What sports do you play and did you play? You know, I'm paying attention to your nervous system when I'm working with you. Maybe this comes up, I don't force it. You know, maybe something in the subconscious does, but I will definitely notice what you're thinking about your body, because it'll come out of your mouth. You will say things to me like, I'm pretty skeptical, so, you know, like, don't mind me, but I'm gonna, you know, like, hold off on being hopeful until I actually see results. That tells me something about you, right? Or someone might walk in my door and be like, oh my God, you are the person I've been waiting for and I know this is gonna work, right? That also tells me something about you and what's about to happen. So all of these things also go into freedom, and if we don't include all of them, we're missing something. We're monocropping our mindset and we're thinking that we should live in singular causes and effects, but that's not how life works. That's not how a human body works. That's not really how pain works, and that's not how freedom works. So I encourage you to look at all of these also when you're seeking freedom. So if you're working on your body and you think it's primarily physical, you may want to enroll your thoughts and your emotions in getting you where you want to go faster. Because if you can create new neural pathways or nervous system patterns through your thinking and your emotions around pain, and your orientation to pain is changing, then you're probably going to get freedom faster than if you think you should just be able to do the fascia release, get out of pain. And, you know, it should be your body should just do what you want. That's not really the way it works. We have to enroll everything. We have to take everything into consideration and honor all of the things that impact our body. So that's what I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your comments below. So I'll see you there, and hopefully I'll see you next time.